Good morning. Welcome to King's Report News Hour for the 28th, no, 27th day, 27th day by the heavenly calendar in the fourth month of the 16th year of Chungi. This is Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Chunuguk, and I'm in a slightly different location. You see a bunk bed behind me. That's because I'm in a security room at the palace in Suncheon, Korea, and I'm looking at some security screens here, making sure that no one sneaks in. uh, and I'm here because on Tuesday we are going to have the Day of True All Things uh, Holy Day, and the King will also be giving a blessing here then, and then also we'll be doing the Ancestor and Liberation then as well, Ancestor and Liberation. So we're gonna have three events sort of combined into one. So it's going to be a somewhat long event. It's going to start at, of course, at 7 o'clock as usual, 7 o'clock local time, in other words, local Korea time. And I expect it to go at least, the king is going to speak, and so I expect it's going to go at least 3 hours. Yes, 2 hours certainly minimum, I think, but maybe around three hours, I think. We'll see how it happens, how it goes. This is the first time we're doing, sort of a combined event like this, so uh, we'll we'll see, and we'll deal with any situation that comes up. All right, let's get to it, and let's go to the places the king has established the turning flag right now in Chungpyeong, Tennessee. 41 degrees this morning, a bit cool, and mostly sunny, increasing cloudiness, a comfortable start to the holiday weekend. A high of 70 degrees, and then tonight partly cloudy and getting down to 54. Father's hometown of Cheongju, not Cheongju, but Cheongju, North Korea, in North Pyongan province, North Korea, what is today North Korea. Currently 68 degrees and clear, and getting out of 47 tonight. Tomorrow pleasant with plenty of sunshine, high of 78. At the Cheongung Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, currently 46 and mostly cloudy. Variable cloudiness with a stray shower tonight, breezy and cool, high of 59 today. And then tonight, partly cloudy this evening, late night low. Clouds, low clouds, low of 47. At the Larry Rock RV Park and Campground in beautiful Limestone County, Texas, currently 73 and mostly cloudy. Breezy and hot with sun, followed by some clouds, and a high of 96 today. Caution advised if outside for extended periods of time, right? And tonight, only getting down to 76, right? And it's going to be humid at 76 and breezy, it says. That'll help. But anyway, it looks like a rather uncomfortable night if you don't have air conditioning. And then we're going to the Suncheon Palace, where I am now, currently 62 and mostly cloudy. I can't see, it's already dark. And cloudy this evening with a shower in places, then plenty, partly cloudy late, low 58. Tomorrow, sunshine, pleasant and warmer, high of 80. That should be nice. At the Gunma Palaces Inn in Japan, it's raining right now, and it's going to continue raining for at least an hour. And it's 63 degrees with light rain. And the forecast for the night is rain, a low of 57. Tomorrow, a little rain in the morning, otherwise cloudy and warmer, high of 81. And going to Ilan, Taiwan, we have 74 degrees right now with overcast skies. It seems like it's overcast every day there. A touch of rain this evening, otherwise cloudy, a low of 68 tonight. Tomorrow, high of 73, a couple of showers in the morning, otherwise cloudy. And so that is how things are across the empire. All right, I don't think I have a copy of God's word here, so I have to, maybe I can do something on Monday, but yeah, right now I don't have it. I don't have anything right now. Okay. So apologize for that, and we'll get something on Monday. All right, let's see what is happening. First of all, following up on the situation with Hak Jahan, as I mentioned, the late last week, the Korean media, sort of all the media, basically came out saying that she had been put on a list of people who are not allowed to leave the country. And this is done by the this was done by the prosecutor's office, the national prosecutor's office. And I see that I see that the Family Federation has put out a letter trying to, well, as you know, some people say, trying to put lipstick on this pig. And I think it, I think it, I think I feel the need to uh, to maybe expand, maybe clarify, because as you know, normally happens in a situation like this, when an organization confronts bad news like this, A, they try and get out in front of it, and B, they start putting their own spin on it, right? So that when members of the organization hear about it from the general media, they say, "Oh, okay, I've already heard about that, and this is what I've been told from my organization, and I'm not going to believe what the media says and stuff like that." So I think let's see, this is okay. Oops. Let me go back again. Okay, well, it's a good thing I wasn't sharing. I'm going to share it as soon as I get squared away here. Okay. No. But as someone who is sort of on the ground here and who is, here we go. Okay. Who's sort of watching the thing unfold, uh, I feel it's probably a good idea for me to give well, not commentary, but some context, I suppose. Okay. And uh, let me share this with you. This is the letter that the Family Federation is putting out. And this particular copy appears to come from the Los Angeles church by Damien Dunkley, by the way. Okay, he's the president of the Family Federation in the U.S., or whatever it is they're calling themselves these days. And some of you have seen reports in the Korean media that True Mother is currently under a temporary travel restriction. And, that, okay. Uh, but what it is that she has been put on a list of people who are not allowed to leave the country. And um, what the media is saying now is that, and the way that, as I mentioned, the way that libel laws work in Korea, you have to be very careful about what you say in public about a certain person. And the fact that it turns out to be true is often not a defense. It's still, if you damage someone's reputation, even if you are damaging their reputation by revealing something that is true, it can still be you could still be liable for libel. And so the Korean media sort of really dance around this. And so, for example, the story today is that a certain high official in the Unification Church, and they're calling it the Unification Church, certain high official in the Unification Church, they're not saying who, on May 15th, of 13th, I'm sorry, May 13th, went to the airport with the intention to board charter flight, a charter flight. Okay. And I think that's a significant factoid. With the intention to board a charter flight, but turned back, and apparently you know, um, was not able to board the charter flight. So that's the story today. So I will leave it up to you to guess who this important person in the Unification Church was that tried to board a charter flight, and then later turned out that a few days later, it turns out that a certain person, as Damien Dunkley himself says, is now on a list of people who are not allowed to leave the country. Okay, and then Damien sort of really gets the spin machine going here, where he says that the development is linked to an ongoing investigation in Korea. Okay, that is true, involving former public officials, including former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol. One of the individuals under scrutiny is Dr. Yoon Young-ho, who previously served in a leadership role within our movement. Although this situation does not involve any wrongdoing by Park Cha-han, there is a possibility she may be called as a witness, not as someone accused, but as part of the investigation with Dr. Yoon's activities. This is why the travel restriction has been imposed. In Korea, it is not unusual for authorities to restrict travel even for people who may simply be called as witnesses. Uh, Damien, give us your source on that. How do you know this is true? You hope it's true. But um, uh, again, what the media is saying, is that as Damien says, Yoon Young-ho is under fire because it is alleged, and they're still investigating this, and no charges have been filed. It's alleged that he gave some expensive gifts to the former first lady before, while President Yoon was in office. And so the prosecutors, the authorities are trying to figure out, what was this about? Was this a bribe? Was this a bribe in exchange for maybe some access to either the first lady or to the president? And the prosecutors and the media have also noted that the Unification Church is involved in some kind of a major, or I guess some kind of an expensive project in Cambodia. And this is the first time I've heard of that. Okay, but apparently there's some major thing going on, or was supposed to be going on in Cambodia. And uh, was there what was Dr. Yoon, as he says here, Yoon Young Ho, trying to get the Korean government to support that project, whatever it is, to expend some money for that project, and all this is still being investigated by the authorities. And what the media now is saying is that Yoon, the first of all, the Family Federation in Korea is saying that all this was Yoon's doing. We had nothing to do with it. Park Cha-han had nothing to do with it. The church had nothing to do with it. It was all his doing, and he's no longer, in that leadership position, and he's totally responsible. Well, what the media is now saying actually is that Yoon is now telling the authorities that he's not going to take the fall for this, and he may be saying that it was all uh, done according to the lady in charge. Okay, the lady in charge. Let's put it that way. That she gave the instruction. So that's one of the questions that the authorities are currently investigating. So Dunkley gives a hopeful sort of statement here that may turn out not to be true, and I don't know how he will. I don't know how he will uh, account for himself if it does turn out to be not to be true. But uh, currently, it is true that officially she is considered a kind of a witness, or at least a person who may be able to give some pertinent information to the ongoing investigation. But you know how in the United States, first a person is a person of interest, and then later on, you did it. You know how that sort of progression works in the United States, right? And it's kind of similar here, where at first you are a person who may be able to give some information about what happened, and then suddenly one day, no, actually you did it, or something like that. So there is that possibility that this uh, current status as witness could become a status as a defendant later on. Okay. All right. So that's basically what this, and then of course they. So yes. So the uh, Family Federation here is under pressure from this, and also in Japan. My sources in Japan, which I kind of consider them to be fairly good. My sources in Japan are saying that the feeling is that the appeals court is going to decide on the matter of the whether or not the Family Federation should be shut down in that country. They're going to decide on that during the month of July, and we know from previous information that once the appeals court makes its decision, yes, there is the opportunity for the Family Federation to appeal to the Supreme Court. However, they have to go ahead and liquidate all their assets at the end of the appeals court process. So if the appeals court rules against them, they have to liquidate all their assets, and I think the government has said that they're going to put all those assets in a some kind of a fund for reparations for the people that they consider to be victims of the Unification Church. So, Family Federation people are sort of getting ready, they say, for the possibility that they're going to be uh, that their organization is going to cease to exist, and that their churches, the individual churches, will be taken away. That they will no longer have a church to go to on Sunday, that kind of thing. And so they're saying, okay, no problem, we'll just have worship service by Zoom. Yeah, and of course they can. We do it, right? We do it, and but I just wonder how long that is going to continue. We're able to continue it because we have Father's Spirit. They don't have Father's Spirit, and so it would be worth watching, I think, to see how long it takes for them to sort of peter out. But we'll see. And more people are coming to the sanctuary. In fact, I think there are at least three, and I heard that there may be more couples being blessed on Tuesday here at the palace. And I'm told that these are people who are coming to the sanctuary from the Family Federation. And when people come to sanctuary from Family Federation, the first thing that they need to determine for themselves is what is their position with respect to True Father. Many of us, including myself, participated in the false foundation day of 2013, and just about everybody who was active in the church then participated in that blessing, worldwide. Took the holy wine that was distributed in connection with that blessing, but that blessing actually was not a blessing; it was a curse, and it was presided over by Hakchahan in unity, not with True Father, but with some other spiritual being. I have my theory as to the name of that spiritual being, but that's strictly my own idea, so I don't think I need to state it here, or I don't think I should state it here. But in any case, it was not Father. That blessing or event was not presided over by Father, and uh, that was part of Satan's attempt to completely destroy everything that Father had accomplished during his life. And so, for example, the two main things that Father accomplished during his life was, first of all, it brought the new expression of the truth, the Word. All right. So, what did these people start doing even before Father passed? Even before he left his physical body, they formed a committee. Even before, while he was still in his physical body, they formed a committee to do exactly what he specifically told them not to do. said, don't change my word. They formed a committee to change the word. The king gives a testimony about how he was riding in a bus with a whole bunch of Korean leaders. And one of the Korean leaders got up and said, they were going along, the bus is moving, right? Takes the microphone and says, Father told us not to change his word, but we're going to change it. And the king said he was just astounded. What? We're going to form a committee to change his word. So the first thing that Satan did was to destroy the word that Father had brought. All right. And of course, they've been doing it gradually, like the frog in boiling water, in hot water, turning up the temperature more and more. But now we see that they're actually tossing out, I understand, copies of Divine Principle, copies of Father's speeches, and so forth, um, and apparently they have been told to do not teach the Divine Principle. This is what I've heard. Do not teach the Divine Principle. You can do your own research to see if this is true, but I think it is. Do not teach the Divine Principle. Instead, teach the content approved by the shaman lady there in Chongpyeong, Korea. So that was one thing. Second thing that Father did was he brought God's lineage, the seed, and beginning with the three couples and the 36 couples, then the 72 couples, 124 couples, 430 couples, and on and on and on and on and on. Okay, 6,000, 6,500, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 400 million, first stage, second stage, third stage, et cetera, et cetera. All that. That was Father creating just as many blessed central families as he possibly could while he was in his physical body. And so what happened in 2013 was that Satan took all of those, or at least most of them, not everyone participated, but most of them, and took them back into his lineage through that cursing ceremony, not blessing ceremony, but cursing ceremony. And those who participated in that ceremony, including myself and most others, then returned to Satan's lineage. And second generation at that moment then became not second generation, fallen second generation. Thanks be to God. And this is something where, I think history is going to really um, honor the second king in a tremendous way. All of humanity owes him a tremendous debt of gratitude. What he did was he cut himself off from this. He says, I'm not gonna have anything to do with this. At great sacrifice, right? At great sacrifice. He was being told, just stay quiet, stay quiet. You're sitting on top of, billions of dollars right now. True, it's not an exaggeration. True, I know, I saw the books. Stay quiet, and then, when your mother passes, then you can change everything to where you want. This is what he was told. His answer was, listen, I'm not going to A, betray my father, and then B, later on betray my mother. That's not a course that I choose to go. And so he took a righteous course at great personal sacrifice to both his material well-being, to his even to his psychological state, I would say, and certainly to his family as well. Because when he took this course, then he was told that he would have to leave East Garden. He could not stay there and go in. He had no place to go. And also, he would have to return the vehicle that he was using. So now he's without a home, without a car, and he's got a wife and 5 children. At that time, quite young. Fortunately, Kuchinim also decided to take course, that righteous course, and Kukjinim was able to give second king and his family space originally in the basement of his home. That was where they first settled, in the basement. So the king cut himself off. And then what he did was he reconnected with Father in the wilderness of Pennsylvania. And he, went out into the woods there of Pennsylvania, prayed, Pennsylvania, and then what Father did through that connection was that he said, okay, there's a 3-year period, from 2013 until early 2016. And later it worked out that it would be Father's birthday in 2016. Okay. Father's birthday in 2016. That anyone who returns to True Father by that date, by 2016, by Father's birthday of 2016, and return to their blessing position as it was given to them by True Father. My wife and I returned 2000, what is it? 15, I guess. Yeah. In the first blessing that the king gave. So the condition was that we had to go through the blessing again. Okay. And the king gave that first blessing in, I think, April of 2015. Yeah. People did that. And a lot of people, a lot of families, and we took, we took all the numbers around the world, and a little more than 3,000 families around the world returned by that deadline. And we figured, okay, husband, wife, and on average, at least one child. 3,000 times, so 3 times 3,000, roughly 10,000. And so we said, okay, 10,000 people returned to True Father's authority by Father's birthday of 2016. During the court battle where the Family Federation was trying to uh, prevent the king from using the Tongan mark, they demanded to see a list. They didn't believe that 10,000 people had returned. We want a list, they said. We said, we don't have members. There is no list because there are no members. And this is a policy that the king took from the very beginning, by the way, that we're not going to use the membership sort of concept because it's not about building an organization. It's about helping people restore their and reconnect with God, restore the relationship with God, to reconnect with God and true parents. And so we're not going to take names of who's in. For example, when I in October 1978, when I joined the Unification Church, I actually signed a piece of paper, a form that said application for membership. I have no idea what happened to that paper, but anyway, I remember signing it. And there's no such paper, there's no such form for people coming to Sanctuary. You come, okay, and you participate in the worship services and so forth, and or you watch them online, and you donate if you're so inspired like that. It's entirely up to you. Entirely up to you. It's your responsibility, your freedom responsibility. Okay, entirely up to you. But remember, there is a spirit world. Okay, there is a spirit world. So just keeping that in mind, it's entirely up to you. Okay, so about 10,000, about 3,000 families, roughly 10,000 people returned by 2016. All right. So what about the rest of the people? Is the door to Noah's Ark closed? Well, in a way, yes, and in another way, no. But True Father did, through his communication with the second king, say, okay, well, the door is closed at True Father's birthday of 2016. People after that can and do still are returning to True Father's authority. But they return in a different position. They do not return to their original blessing status. My wife and I, we were blessed by Father in the 6,000 couple blessing, and we still have that status of the 6,000 couple blessing because we returned it to True Father during that 3-year grace period. People who return after, and a lot of people have, and as I say, more couples are going to be doing it on Tuesday here. People who return after Father's birthday 2016 return as already married couples. You go through that process again of the holy wine, the blessing ceremony, the indemnity stick, the 40-day separation, the prayer by a pastor, the 3-day ceremony. You go through that whole process again because you're coming now as an already married couple. And the second generation, the people who were born as second generation, are now, after True Father's birthday of 2016, no longer second generation. They are first generation, and they will be blessed as first generation. Except there is an exception where, so there is one way in which a family federation second gen can restore their second gen status and return to True Father's authority as second generation. That one exception, that one way, is that first that person must be pure sexually and be qualified for the second generation blessing, except for the fact that they participated in the 2013 blessing or any other blessing or any other, not blessing but christening ceremony, what Family Federation calls blessing but actually is a christening ceremony, any other blessing ceremony after that. Okay, must not, even except, yes, even if they did, if that is their only problem, if that is their only fault, and they are sexually pure, they have not committed the fall, and they must be blessed with a pure sanctuary second generation. In other words, a second sanctuary generation who is a second generation in True Father's authority. And there have been a few people who have come that course, and they've restored their second generation status in that way. Not many, but there are a few who have come that course. Okay. People who are being blessed on Tuesday, I'm not sure what their situation is, but they are not being. They need the holy wine ceremony, of course. They need the holy wine ceremony, and so they will be conducting the holy wine ceremony, and they will also be giving a um, a confession prayer during the. This will be. They will be doing this during the blessing ceremony. Basically, what the confession prayer says is that I participated in an event which I thought was presided by True Father, but now I see that was not the case, and I repent, and I'm grateful that today, through this blessing, I can return to True Father's authority. Basically, that's the content of that confession prayer. As things progress, more and more people in the Family Federation are saying, "Hey, you know what? I don't like where this is going," and they start looking around, and unfortunately, they've been filled with a lot of propaganda from the Family Federation leadership, especially in Korea and Japan, saying that, Hyungjin is unfilial. He he says bad things about his mother, this kind of thing. And I point out that yes, as they say in Korea, okay, when the father dies, the children are supposed to follow the mother, are supposed to follow and do what the mother says. That this is Family Federation's argument that this is Korean tradition. But, okay, but Father did not just come to Korea. He came to a Korea that was evangelized. And I made a mistake before saying that Father's family converted to Christianity before he was born. No, actually, one brother, David, pointed out to me that I was wrong, and that in Father's autobiography, it says that Father's family converted when he was about 10 years old, around 10 years old. But the point is still the same, because when Christianity, especially when Protestant Christianity came to Korea, it changed Korean tradition in a number of ways. And one of those ways was that it ended the slavery system, essentially. Slavery system was already falling apart, but it gave sort of logical foundation for this to end, because all men are equal under God. Everyone is a children of God. The second thing it did was that it ended the practice of men of a certain social status uh, having mistresses, or at least one mistress. And just like today, a man of a certain status might have a fancy car, but might have a Rolls Royce or something like that, or maybe not even Rolls Royce, but a fancy German car, something like that. Kind of in the same way, it was kind of a status symbol to have a mistress, and Christianity ended that. The other thing that Christianity did, which Family Federation does not want to acknowledge, is that it introduced the concept of a personal God to Korean culture. And Father, talks about how Koreans believe in sort of the unitary God, in a monotheistic God. But that monotheistic God is pretty amorphous. It's not a personal God. And excuse me just a minute. But when you have a personal God, now people owe their allegiance in filial piety not just to their parents, but to the parent who is above their parent. Jesus said this, right? Jesus said this. He said that if you love your parents, if you love your mother, your father, your brother, your sister more than me, then you are not worthy of me, right? Jesus said that. But there's a higher being above our parents to whom we owe ultimate filial piety. And this is a point where, especially people who have come from backgrounds that, other than the Christian background, and some Christians too, but especially people who come from Buddhist or Confucian backgrounds, I think have a hard time understanding this. I've talked before how, originally God prepared Christians to work with Father when Father first began his ministry in 1945, when Japan surrendered in August 1945. Immediately, Father began his ministry. And at that time, there were two kinds of Christians. At least Father says that there were two kinds of Christians, one a Cain type and Abel type. During the Japanese rule, um, Koreans were enforced under the threat of lethal force to worship at Shinto shrines. And Shinto shrines were set up around the country, and they were forced to worship there. And some Christians chose to say, okay, well, in my heart, all right, I may bow at the Shinto shrine, but in my heart, I'm actually bowing to Jesus, right? I don't believe in that stuff. So that was one type of Christian. And Father said, okay, those are the Cain type Christians. Father said the Abel type Christians are those who said, nope, not going to do that. Not going to do that. And they paid for their resistance by being put in jail and being tortured. True Mother Hyun Kong's father was one of those who was arrested and was put in prison and was mercilessly tortured to the point where he was near death. And he was released from prison so that he would not die in prison, but he died a few weeks afterwards. And unfortunately, just a few weeks before, uh, Japan surrendered, and it was kind of tragic. But there were many people like that. And Father said, okay, those were the able type Christians, and those were the Christians that Father really wanted to work with. But they rejected him, and so once the Christians rejected him, then who came to Father? Who was it that came to Father? It was the people who were patriots, and this is great. You know, my wife is one of those, frankly, although she was a Christian before joining, but primarily she joined the Unification Church because of the anti-communist ideology, and there were a lot of people who joined because they were patriots. And one of the things that I did early in my life in Korea was that Father wanted the older members, the senior members, to write down their testimonies and then to give them overseas, to go overseas and talk to American and European members about their testimonies. And I was given the task of translating many of these testimonies into English. And one of the sort of common threads that I saw in many of the testimonies was that where they would say, before I met the Unification Church, I was thinking, why was I born in such a poor country? I don't deserve to be born in such a poor country. Because at that time, all right, in the early to mid 50s and even late 50s, Korea was one of the, if not the poorest country in the world. Think of the poor countries, which ones they are, and that's actually Korea might have been lower than that. Actually, when we see photographs of Seoul, for example, back then, uh, still a lot of thatched roof homes. And my wife actually once told me that she remembers when electricity first came to her home when she was young, when she was a child, a small child. So it was the patriots who were frustrated about the state of Korea. And then they come across a man who says that, okay, in the future, Korea is going to be the envy of the world. And they're going, wow, this is great stuff. I want to belong to that group. And a lot of people came. A lot of people came then. But then the Christians were in charge of the government, and they, played some dirty tricks and uh, arrested Father on false pretenses and branded Father as a heretic and so forth and so on, and threatened people not to have anything to do with Father, and well, ever since then they've been doing their level best to try and keep people from actually listening to what the Unification Church has to say. So these people, these patriots, it's great, fantastic, because someone had to work with Father, right? And we're very fortunate that people like Bohi Pak, people like uh, Choan Kwak, people like these others who were the early members. Of course, some Christians did join. True Mother Hyun Kong was one of them. Also, Pastor Lee Johan Lee, Pastor Johan Lee was another one. He was a minister before he joined. But the sort of the power center of the church was with people like Bo Hi Pak and Kwak Johan, and also Jesok Lee. Also, I worked with him for a while, and he came from a Buddhist background. And these people also, even today, Son, you may be watching, so I don't want to name his name, but Son blank blank, who also comes from a Confucian background. I know um, they they even though they are close to true Father. All right. They do not have, there's something different about their understanding of Messiah. Let me just put it that way. And in my opinion, that difference, or shall we say, not difference, but limitation in their understanding of what exactly the Messiah is, goes a long way towards explaining why so many of them chose not to follow True Father's designated heir and successor. Okay. And they know what a father is, of course, from their Confucian tradition. They know what a father is. And it's okay, this is sort of a super father. True father, okay, well, it's kind of a father, but a super father. All right. So, but, but I don't think they understand father in terms of his being in, well, to put it in Christian terms, the third person of the Trinity, the divine Trinity. They're not understanding it in that sense. Okay. So anyway, um, so I have to be careful because it may be, I may be sort of very arrogantly implying that since I'm the son of a minister, that somehow I have a higher understanding. But you know what? It's not just me, but it's my ancestors also. Okay, uh, many of my father's a minister, my uncle's a minister, and there seems to be a lot of ministers in my family, my lineage, and so there may be something there that is a gift from God, and which lets me, gives me, helps me to have a deeper understanding of True Father as that third person of the Trinity, or is it second person of the Trinity? I'm sorry, I guess it's the second person of the Trinity. All right, exposing myself there, my ignorance. Okay. All right. So, wow, I spoke almost the entire hour. But anyway, so people are returning to True Father's authority, and people will always have an opportunity to return to True Father's authority. All those. And just like Jesus um, said that his first priority was to work with the Jews, so also uh, the king's first priority and our first priority always, I think, is to work with um, people who are still in the family federation because Father invested so much love in those people. We don't know how much Chongsong and how much blood, sweat, and tears Father invested for me to receive the blessing, for me to come to meet the Lord of the Second Advent, to meet Jesus returned. That is an incredible thing, not because of my merit, but because of what Father did for me. And it would be a double tragedy if we simply sort of cut these people off. Because when we cut them off, we're also cutting off all the Chongsong that Father poured into those people. So even if they can only come back as established couples, already married couples, still we need to do our best to reach out to these people and to bring them back, to help them come back. We know from experience, right, that once someone has tasted Father's love, it remains with them. Sometimes we've had people come back, or we've had actually people come from society and talking with him, they'll say, "Oh, you know what? I was at Madison Square Garden, or I was at Yankee Stadium, and I felt something there that I've had ever since then. 50 years later, almost, you know, it'll be 50 years next month. Um, Almost 50 years later, that seed that Father planted in that huge rally, but he planted a seed in each and every person who was there. That seed is still alive, and that seed brings them to True Father after after 50 years. I think it is incredible to see. And so, Family Federation people, far more than that, right? It's not just a seed that Father planted there. He planted a whole field in these people. And I know that Father is yearning for uh, these children to return to him, uh, even if it is as established couples, already married couples. Wow. Okay. Didn't mean to speak for so long, but I think this is important. I've talked about this before, but since this blessing is going to happen on Tuesday, and I know a lot of people I hope will be watching that, and especially now because more and more people in Family Federation are um, coming to understand that they took a wrong turn. Damien Dunkley apparently is not one of them. But yeah, father always would say, not always, but often would say, "Well, wait until you die, then you'll see." And I think most likely Damien and others like him will have that experience. Once they get into spirit world, they'll see, "Oops, see Daisy, I think I goofed." All right, let's see here. Oh my goodness, I only have 9 minutes left now. What was I going to do? All right, let's see. Actually, you know what I was going to talk about today was cryptocurrency because that's becoming more and more of a thing. But okay, not today. I was going to talk about the Genius Act and that kind of thing, okay, but obviously that's not going to work today. Uh, this is interesting to me. Prince William, who may be the next king of uh, of whatever, of England and Scotland and Wales, I guess. And wait a second, how can I stop this? Where's that noise coming from? Where's that? Where's that sound coming from? Oh, this thing. Yeah. Okay. All right. I finally found it. Okay. Oh, no. Oh, where's, figure out where that sound is coming from. I'm going to have to kill all of my tabs. Oh, finally. Okay. Finally, that was it. Okay. All right. So Prince William, and um, I look at Prince William because as our monarchy starts to develop, um, people in the royal family will be looking at other models, right? And um, I've actually had some conversations with some members of our royal family about this, about my impression of what I think the Japanese royal family is doing good and so forth. But also, William apparently is thinking about how to change the British royal family. And one thing I saw that he's doing, I wish I could get it back. Apparently, that was not the problem. One thing that I see he was doing was he's saying, okay, well, listen, right now we have a kind of a patronage system where different members of the royal family are in charge of, or they're sort of the patrons of this or patrons of that. But instead of that, we should have a thing where, oh, here we go. Yeah, okay, we should have a thing where different members of the royal family are connected to certain projects, actual projects. I found it again, so get, let me go to it. I'm thinking, yeah, that's interesting. May not be interesting to you, but anyway, let's do this. Prince William reportedly has a radical change planned after hiring divorce lawyers used by Princess Diana. And when we first look at that headline, you think, "Oh no, he's not going to divorce her, is he?" Kate's a nice guy, a nice girl. Why is he going to divorce her? But no, apparently that's not what's going on. Prince William is reportedly planning for a radical new era just a few months after hiring Prince Diana's divorce lawyers in a headline-making move. Kate Manzi, royal editor of the Times, revealed during a May 23 episode of True Royalty TV's The Royal Beat that a palace insider claims William is working towards some major changes that could change the monarchy as we know it. You know, well, this is only interesting to us because we also have a royal family that is sort of in the nascent stages of development. According to Mansi, William wants plans for the future of the royal family will be quite a radical departure, really, from what the king does or what the late queen did. While discussing some of William's recent royal appearances, Manzi said, I think what's really interesting about this is I wrote a profile about William recently, and someone very close to him was saying that this is a move away from these classic kinds of patronages where you would go and support an existing charity to actual projects. William is beginning to make moves to prepare for his time as king, and according to Manzi, wants to come away and think, I've made a difference there. There's money that's gone into that community center, or there's something that's happened because I went there rather than just showing up and shaking some hands. So, what does this have to do with William hiring the legal team Princess Diana worked with in her divorce from King Charles? The move is reportedly one of William's many efforts to separate himself from his father. Okay. The British royal family, it's interesting because if you look at it, what Philo was planning, Philo was also looking at the British royal family in the late 40s and early 50s. And you'll find where he says that, if things had worked out, in other words, if the plan A had worked out in 1945 and between 45 and 52, then he says that he would have married into the British royal family. So, uh, so he had, so now that might not necessarily be because he held them in awe or anything like that. Because remember, father was in his marriage, even to Hak Jahan, uh, trying to be married to the worst lineage that he could find. Uh, And if you look at the way God works or Father works, they always start with the worst part. When Father came to America, where did he start? He did not start at the easiest place in America. He went to Fifth Avenue in New York, and he wept to see the state of America. And he later said that I came as a fireman to put out a to put out a fire for a house that's on fire. I came as a physician to heal a country that is dying. Well, this is what he said in his speeches in America. So in his marriage, also, he was not trying to find uh, the easiest path for himself. And even in the in the blessings that he gave, he would often say, "Listen, we have to have these exchange marriages between enemies, enemy countries, right? Between black and white in America, between Germans and Americans, between Americans and Koreans, Koreans and Japanese, and so forth and so on. And so always he was trying to bring together people from ethnic groups who were enemies in the past. Not they themselves were enemies, not the individuals involved were enemies, but that they represented in their spirit world was connected to these conflicts in the past. So Father also was doing that. Was also doing that with his own marriage, but it is a kind of a model because we know that Satan goes before God because Satan knows God's will, and so Satan will tend to produce something that externally looks like God's will. We know I don't have time right now. I'm already out of time, but don't have time to give examples right now. But this happens over and over and over again, and this is explained even in Divine Principle, I believe. All right, so anyway, interesting. So I just giving that one story today. Uh, but anyway, I hope that people will. I didn't do a Wednesday thing this week, did I? So this was my Wednesday talk. Okay. I just did it on Saturday. All right. God bless. Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.